The Montauk Project, according to supposed project insiders, were a series of U.S. government experiments that were conducted at Camp Hero, aka the now defunct Montauk Air Force Station in Montauk, Long Island. The Montauk experiments were reportedly conducted with the aim of developing mind control and time travel technologies. The time travel aspects of Montauk grew out of the more well-known Philadelphia experiments, which reportedly took place in October of 1943. The initial aim of the Philadelphia experiment was to find a method to make large military vessels completely invisible on radar. An unintended and incredible side effect of the experiment was witnessed when the USS Eldridge, with some crew aboard, apparently became invisible to the naked eye and subsequently vanished from our reality. Reportedly, when the Eldridge re-emerged from the dimensional rift, many of the sailors had somehow melded with the walls of the ship. All of the crew aboard were deemed mentally inappropriate or completely discredited entirely following the experiment. The Montauk Project was reportedly begun in Camp Hero towards the end of 1943 in an effort to better understand what had happened on the USS Eldridge. Camp Hero was chosen because it already had a large radar antenna that could pulse in the correct frequency ranges to interact with the human mind. Testing and experimentation at Camp Hero supposedly went on from late 1943 until sometime late in the 1980s. Funding for the Montauk Project was provided by the Department of Defense when lead members of the research teams assured the DoD that they would be developing various methods of mind control. One of the more out there and well-known accounts of the Montauk-Philadelphia connection was when, in August of 1983, a bridge was created at Montauk back to the original 1943 Philadelphia experiment. Two men aboard the Eldridge during the original 1943 experiment, Al Bielek and Duncan Cameron, claimed to have jumped off of the ship while in hyperspace, arriving at Montauk in 1983. The two men were supposedly convinced to be sent back to the USS Eldridge through the time portal to destroy the equipment aboard the Eldridge that had been keeping the vessel locked in hyperspace. Duncan Cameron also figures heavily into the mind control aspects of the Montauk Project. On the mind control side of the project, it has been said that a human catalyst was needed to perform various tasks. Subjects such as Cameron would supposedly be linked up with project technologies during the experiments to perform tasks like sending messages or images directly into project targets' minds, or to manifest a variety of objects from the ether. One of the more interesting tales featuring Cameron is one in which he manifested a huge Bigfoot-like creature on the lab floor, which terrorized lab workers and, in some tellings, even destroyed portions of the lab. The government and military have always denied that any of this experimentation took place. They also deny having any involvement with most of the key players in the Montauk story. Despite these denials, the Montauk Project has remained a popular conspiracy theory to this day. You can find its influence in many films and television, and most recently in the popular Netflix series Stranger Things. Shrouded in mystery, we will likely never know the true scope of the Montauk Project. The technologies involved and the methodologies used have never been divulged, and it's unlikely that project files will ever be declassified, if any actually exist. Present day, Camp Hero is now a state park, popular with hikers and nature lovers. Many of the original project structures are still standing, surrounded only by a chain link fence. However, there are those who say that the Montauk Project is still ongoing, and that there exists a large underground complex underneath the old site that may still be functioning to this day. It has been said that there are large megawatt power supplies that feed into two of the old buildings on the site, and perhaps down into the subterranean complex beneath. Thank you for joining me on this cursory exploration of the Montauk Project. If you'd like to investigate the subject further, I would suggest listening to a couple of the old Art Bell Vault interviews from the early to mid 90s. Please join me next time as I continue to explore conspiracies, the unexplained, high strangeness, and more. Thank you.